So, welcome to my channel. This is the first video. My name is Marcelo. I am the maintainer of Unicorn and Starlet. And I am also very familiar with FastAPI. So I've decided that to create this channel to share a bit of my knowledge and spread a bit of good practices and talk about of the stuff that about the stuff that I know. So it's been a while since I promised this. I think in June or something like that. I promised creating the channel. I actually have one video here, but it's not very like I just recorded and then I stopped. So I promised this very long time ago, and then this is the first one that I'm gonna be recording. Well, nice to meet you. And today I brought a specific topic that I want to talk. I actually want to see how this works, if it's a good idea to talk about some specific stuff, or if I should create some tutorials or more about, I don't know, like showing the structure of the code or something more specific about some library. I want to see how this goes. If this doesn't work out as well, it's fine. Let's just see. Feedback is always appreciated. Comments and stuff like share to your friends. I don't know. But yeah, so today I'm gonna talk about the test client. Let's see if I know how to share the screen on this stuff. Oh, amazing. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna tell you two ways of testing your FastAPI application, and both ways are documented. So the first one, actually I'm gonna create first one endpoint. So anyway, as I was saying, both ways are fine. They have a specific purpose depending on your application. And most of people, I guess, not sure if people are confused, but they don't know the difference of those two ways of testing a FastAPI application. So right now I'm gonna create this endpoint. I'm gonna let Copilot finish it for me. Thank you. And then we're gonna test this application. Okay, so we're gonna not do this. So I'm gonna test home. Yeah, we're gonna do we're not gonna do that Copilot. So we're gonna create a test client first. Okay, so test client. Let's call it client. Oops. Yeah. So the test client is imported from FastAPI dot test client import test client. Cool. So if we go here, we just call this and we assert that the response had the status 200. So if we run this, I don't have PyTest. pip install PyTest. Okay, cool. If I install this and then I run PyTest on main, I don't have HTTPX, so let's install HTTPX as well. HTTPX. Okay, cool. Everything's installed. Let's try again. Okay, so my test passes here. So let's be sure that we are actually testing this endpoint. We're gonna check the response body. Okay, cool. We are really checking this endpoint. I said this because sometimes you are testing some endpoint. You are doing, for example, this status codes and then checking if it's 404 or checking 401 or some different client side error for something, and then you think that you are testing the right endpoint, but you are not. So it's actually better if you can add another conditional to make sure that that's what you are really testing. Also, if you have on your project 100% coverage, you shouldn't be worried about what I just said, because you are gonna notice that that code's not covered. So you don't need to worry about what I just said. Anyway, so this is one way, and the way that is documented on, I think, on the first lines on the FastAPI documentation were related to tests, and this is fine, and this is just fine. If on a real scenario you would have a conf test that would create this test client, and then you'd have something like this. So PyTest, import PyTest, and then create a fixture that could be either a session or a function, but it really depends on if your application is, it really depends on your application. But let's consider that we're gonna use scope, and then we're gonna create this test client. Let's call it client to make the same name, use the same name. So, and we just return the test client. Okay. So we do this, and we don't need it here. We call it client here. We put the test client annotation, and oops, and here return none. Perfect. So if I run this, this is also going to pass. Okay, now it's important to mention that there is something that it is mentioned on the documentation, but people don't really read to that point often. So it's a question that usually arises when you are developing on FastAPI. It is when you have the startup event. So if I have on event, and I have this startup event, and I have something like def startup, and I have only starting up, and if I run this code, I will never going to see this starting up. Okay, let's make it more clear. Let's add this exception. So if I run now the test, this is not going to raise an exception, and the reason for that is that the way we are creating the test client, it's in a way that we don't run the lifespan events. So lifespan events are the startup and the shutdown events. Okay, so those run before and after the lifetime of your application. But if we change this and we do with test client, as client, yield client. If we do this, we're gonna notice that we actually have the exception. The reason for this is that when we use the context as a context manager, we do have this exception happening. We do have those events being called. So it's not only the startup, but also the shutdown. So this is actually important because sometimes you do something at startup that you assume that the test suite is actually making use of, and it's not. So this is something that you should be aware. It also impacts the case that you have different scopes. So if you have a function scope, as it is the default and the one that you're using it, what's going to happen is we're going to call startup and we're going to call the shutdown on each test. So if you want to avoid this and have it a startup only once, and then at the end, you could change this by session, which would do what I just said. So this is what I wanted to say about this application. And now we're gonna do some changes here. Well, no, actually no, we're not gonna do any changes. But the other setup would be with with directly using the HTTPX async client. Okay, so okay, so we have this application. Let's actually get another application. So we're gonna do the same thing from FastAPI, import FastAPI. Let's create another app. Let's create another endpoint, the same endpoint. Instead of home, we're gonna do async def home. We're gonna create an async function that will just return the same message, the same response. And on the test client, we're gonna also create a fixture by test. Let's not use any scope, which will be the same as using this. The default one is the function one. So we're gonna return here the test. Oops, sorry. We're gonna return here the async client. Async client. Good. So import HTTPX, and then we're gonna create the HTTPX, the async client. Okay, cool. It's actually missing the async here and async here. Cool. And needs to be an iterator from typing import iterator. Cool. Working? No, why are not working? Sorry. Async iterator. Async iterator. Good, good. Okay, so I have now the test client. Sorry, I have a client that's going to be used to test my application, and in this case, it's going to be I'm going to use HTTPX. So it is analogous to setup. So I'm going to create a test home. Oh, perfect. Compiled. Thank you. And we're going to test this one. Let's see if there is something wrong. Yeah, there is something wrong. We're gonna use, actually we already have it. So as people are not familiar, there are, well, if you saw the error, let's run the error again. You need to have a plugin so you are able to run the async test, right? And you can use some of those. Mostly the one that people use most are either the PyTest async.io or NAO directly. We're not going to use PyTest async.io for the simple reason that we already have NAO out of the box when we have HTTPX, as it is a dependency of it. So well, actually it's a dependency of Starlet as well, so we don't need to install another thing. So if we do this, PyTest mark NAO, we are not now able to run the test. Okay, the problem now was because we have, if you do this without any change, what you're gonna have is that you're gonna run we're gonna run the test with two backends. One would be the async IO and the other would be the trio IO. Oh, actually what we need to do is to add a fixture so any IO can understand that we only want to run the async IO backend. So if we do this, return async IO, we're gonna notice that we're gonna run a single one. So there's a single dot. If in case we remove this, we can also remove it, and we can install Trio. If we do this, we are able to see that this exception is not related. Don't worry. This is because of incompatibility between the versions of NEIO and Trio, which I think I can solve it now, but don't pay attention to that. The thing is that here you see two dots, and if you notice, we run with verbose. We see that one of is Trio and the other one is async IO. So, so should I run it with both of them, or a single one? Well, it really depends on what you are building, but usually if you are building an application like using FastAPI, you should not need both of them. So you should probably do what I did in the beginning. So just add this and then it's fine. There is also the alternative, which is using the async IO, right? If you do this, I think I need to install it. PyTest async IO. If I do this and I run it, maybe some configuration is missing. Let's see. Whoops. And async generator has no attribute get. What is this about? Dun dun dun. Dun dun dun. I think it is related to the fixture that needs to be async IO. Import PyTest. I think this is something new or something like that. Is it? Yeah, it is new. I almost forgot about this, but luckily I remember on the first try of the video. So that's great. But anyway, so you can do either one or the other. There is a configuration on async.io, sorry, on PyTest async.io, that you don't need to automatically to add this mark. It will automatically infer and use this test as part of the test suite. But for now, just this is fine. And well, we are at the end. And the question that we want to solve is to answer is, when should I use one test client from FastAPI, from Starlet, and when do you want to use the HTTPX async client? And the answer for this is, as we saw, if your code source has the endpoints with async, you should probably and most likely use the HTTPX async client, because then your whole code, even your test suite and also your code source, they are going to use async Python. So it's just fits well with everything. Otherwise, the test client from FastAPI, from Starlet, it's fine if you're just not using benefiting from async Python. If you look at the test client, just as a curiosity, the test client inherits from the HTTPX client, which is the sync version of the async client. So this is actually quite new. It was introduced, I think, 2-3 months ago, maybe 2. And before this version, the test client was using request instead of the HTTPX. We changed this. I'm not gonna talk about the reasoning, but you can always find the issue and the pull request on which we discussed this. But the fact is that there was this change, which actually simplifies a lot of stuff, because Encode is an organization which Tom Christie created Starlet, created Unicorn, and created HTTPX. And since those packages are from the same family, it makes more sense to have test client inheriting from HTTPX. In any case, there's also one more point, and the last one that I want to mention, that is, what do I do? Because some people think about this, and they use WebSockets, and the thing is, how do I do if I want to use if I want to test my WebSocket endpoints? And I'm mentioning this because out of the box you cannot use the HTTPX async client to test those. But what you can do is access this. I'm gonna also share the link below with this package. It was recently created. I think it has 1 month, but it's a very simple layer which wraps the clients from HTTPX, and you can test your WebSockets. If you access this, Frankie 567 François created this package to make our life easier, until the point that if at some point HTTPX supports WebSockets, then well, if that happens, this package is not going to be that useful, but until that point happens, it is going to be useful and much appreciated. So yeah, those were everything that I wanted to talk about. I'm really happy that I finally made it. It's been a long road for this simple some minutes video length to happen. So I'm really happy that I could finish it. And yeah, please share, add some comments, add a feedback, or share it with your friends. I don't know, do something. Help me, please. And yeah, thank you for watching. Like, if you really are here till now, much appreciated. And yeah, please suggest topics. I'll be more than happy to talk about things that that you suggest, because I do not have many topics in my list that I can talk. Like I'm just without creativity lately for this kind of thing. But please share it so I have ideas, and I can prepare some cool stuff. Also, let me know if you want tutorials or if you want to know something specific. I can also try to create content for that. And well, thank you, and see you later.